If you haven't seen Prosecutor John Lewin's unique approach to direct and cross-examinations, you're missing out. To quote Mr. Lewin, he likes to ask questions of which there are no good answers. Nowhere was this more jaw-dropping of an experience to watch than in his cross-examination of memory expert Dr. Elizabeth Loftus. Dr. Loftus championed what she considered falsely accused child abusers and murderers for decades, and she won awards for it, prestigious awards. She has testified for the defense of Bill Cosby, Richard Ramirez, Ted Bundy, Tim Hennis, Jeri Sandusky, and that's just to name a few.
Examining Dr. Loftus, you may continue your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Loftus, two quick questions that relate to yesterday's testimony. One of them I asked you about a few minutes ago before we came into court, or before, excuse me, the jury came in. You had testified yesterday in terms of your involvement with the Bundy case, and that you became involved in Utah. He had not been charged in any of the Washington crimes yet. He was a student at the University of Washington where you were a teacher at the time that some of his crimes took place. Is that right?
Ted Bundy was an undergraduate
Yes.
at the University of Washington. I don't remember if we overlapped.
No. Oh, okay. No, I'm not asking if you knew him. I'm just saying you were up there and in Washington at the time when many of these crimes took place. Is that correct?
At the time that some of the crimes took place, yes.
Right. And the question I'd asked you yesterday was, you agree that once Ted Bundy ended up being arrested in Utah, before you took the case, even though he had not been charged in any crime in Washington, you were aware that he was a suspect in a series of murders up in the Washington area. Is that correct?
I had only heard a whiff of a suspicion that he might be the Ted that was connected to Washington.
Right. So in other words, I'm just trying to clarify. It's not that you had a bunch of evidence, but in other words, it's not as if you end up taking this case in Utah and then you later find out, oh my God, this guy is a suspect in these other cases. You didn't have direct evidence, but you had heard that he was potentially a person of interest in those cases, correct?
It was, I'd only heard a rumor because I was not living in Seattle at that time. During that time, I was at Harvard on a fellowship that I was awarded to work with the president and Dean of Arts and Sciences at Harvard. So I was not privy to the media in Seattle.
Right. Doctor, I've got to ask you, in the question that I just asked you a moment ago, can you tell me in your answer how the fact that you were at Harvard working for the president and the dean, can you tell me how that answer was responsive to anything that I said?
Because when you spoke to me before we resumed testimony, you insinuated that I would have access to lots of media that was occurring in Seattle where I wasn't living at the time.
No, doctor, so my question though is that all you had to say was, I was not living in Seattle. Why did you add the comments about who you were working for, how prestigious it was? Was that an attempt, doctor, to, again, kind of tell the jury who you are, how important, how successful, et cetera? How is that responsive to what I asked you?
Well, I was away for the year at Harvard. You can ignore the rest of what I was doing there.
Well, no, I'm just asking, did you realize when you answered that question that it was not responsive to what I asked?
So, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how excited I was when I found out they were going to call Loftus. I don't know if they didn't do their homework.